it rolling?
We're rolling.
Here's a thought-provoking spoken words about my first few days of living in Florida. On November 26, 1986, I was a completely different person from what I am today. On November 27, 1986, everything changed. I was in the process of moving from the Chicago area to Florida. Later in the afternoon, 1986, November 26, 1986, I stopped in Atlanta, and the weather was much warmer than Minnesota or the Chicago area for late November, but the temperatures were in the mid-60s, which I could live with. Also, the fall colors were peaking. Later that day, I continued heading south. By the time that I got to Valdosta, Georgia, the weather was too fucking hot out, and it felt muggy. It was no longer nice or acceptable. I got into Jacksonville, Florida at around 11 p.m. and I saw a thermometer and the temperature was 73 degrees. And by 5:30 p.m. on November 27, 1986, I arrived at my brother's condo in Pompano Beach just in time for Thanksgiving dinner. Later that night, I arrived at my new house in Florida and I thought it would be neat to put the cat on the bathroom sink, and I was there for less than 5 minutes, and my mother was in a bitchy mood. If she was in such a wonderful place, why was she in such a bitchy mood? If that's not all, it was still the temperatures were still in the 70s and very muggy, and my parents did not put the air conditioner on, and it was so fucking hot in that house. And then it dawned on me, my life turned to shit because my parents decided to move from someplace cool like the Chicago area to Florida, which is a fucking cesspool. I had to have Florida shoved down my throat because other people like it. Most of my relatives lived in Florida, and they loved it there because they are a bunch of assholes and they have shit for brains. I never wanted to move to Florida, but my parents told me that I had no choice because I wasn't earning enough money to live on my own. Meanwhile, everyone I knew told me that I had no choice but to move to Florida because everyone I knew was a fucking asshole. If that's not all, my parents tried to stop me from driving down to Florida on my own because they wanted to treat me like a fucking retard. November 23, 1986 was my final day of living in the house that I grew up at, in the town that I grew up at, since I dropped out my mother's twat. When I got into Florida on November 27, the temperature was in the mid-80s, which was too fucking hot. If that's not all, I found a website that has the archives for the weather in Florida on November 27, 1986, and I found out that the dew point was 66, which was bad enough, but by November 28, 1986, the dew point came up to 69. It's nice to get 69, but not when it's the dew point. Then on November 29, 1986, the dew point came up to 71, which is fucking horrible, but the late great George Carlin once said that 71 is nothing more than 69 with 2 fingers up your ass. The dew point is not supposed to be 2 fingers up your ass during the month of November or anywhere near that high. During the years 1987, 1988, 1989, and 1990, I tried to be patient and give Florida a chance. But during that time frame, I discovered another reason why Florida fucking sucks almost on a daily basis. During that time frame, I got harassed by the police quite a few times, and if you think the cops up north are a bunch of corrupt, brutal assholes, that is nothing in comparison to the way they are in Florida. I had so many horrible experiences when I lived in Florida, I can't even mention a fraction of them. And to top it all off, the weather was too fucking hot out most of the time. During Christmas 1989, something wonderful happened while I was living in Florida. A real nice cold front came through, and the high temperature was only in the 50s and the low was in the 30s, and I thought it was beautiful, but everyone else acted like the world was coming to an end, and they thought that it was too cold because most people in Florida are a bunch of assholes. At long last, I thought that the weather would be nice for the rest of the winter. Well, a few days later, it did not only get too fucking hot out, but it turned out to be one of the hottest winters on record. If that's not enough, the governor of Florida, Bob Martinez, who was this fucking asshole, by the way, decided that he was going to ban music from a group called Two Live Crew. Freedom of speech is something that I feel strongly about, and anyone who tries to take it away ends up on my shit list. And because that happened in Florida caused me to hate that state so much that I couldn't take living there anymore. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And then you know about this one. On February 13, 1994, which was also fucking cruddy Valentine's Day Eve, when I was getting ready to go to work at noon, I checked the thermometer to see what the temperature was, and it was 95 degrees, and when I saw that, I went into a total rampage, and that was before I found out that I had Asperger's. People with Asperger's can be sensitive to being hot or cold, and I happen to be sensitive to the heat. So it is common for me to have meltdowns when the weather gets too fucking hot out. I went into that rampage because I keep records of the weather, and it had never gotten up to 95 degrees during the month of February before, and I was pissed. Now, I don't want to be about total negativity here. Someone once told me to think about the good things that came out of living in Florida, or what did I learn from the experience? Well, I learned that the world is a lot more rotten and horrible beyond my wildest nightmares, but the most important thing that I learned from my experience is Florida sucks. I also met my friend June while I was living in Florida, and the reason that I like her so much is because she's intelligent enough to realize that Florida sucks. If that's not all, there were times that me and June would go into the drugstore and look at the laxatives and enemas. And laugh while looking at the pictures of people being bent over on the box and reading the instructions on the proper way for someone to stick an enema up their ass. Another thing is the time period from 1982 to Thanksgiving 1986 and it was in 1982 that I graduated high school, and I discovered freedom and liberation from all that shit I experienced when I was going to school, and all that fucking conformist piece of fucking filth and all that fucking trash I went to school with. And while I was growing up, my parents tried to shelter me and treat me like I was a fucking retard in hopes that I would grow up to be as stupid and boring and mediocre as they are, along with most of the other conformist brain-dead assholes in the world. It was really liberating and cool when I was old enough to drive into Chicago and go to clubs and they played cool punk rock and alternative music. And I will never forget the time when I went to a club in Chicago when they showed a video of some guy crawling on a bathroom floor, struggling to make it to a toilet while he was vomiting blood. That was fucking cool. My parents had an agenda behind moving to Florida. They thought that moving to Florida would cause me to turn normal, but instead the complete opposite happened. Shortly after I moved there, I was talking about the movie Personal Best. I don't know if have you heard of the movie?
I've heard of it.
It was about lesbian tennis players or athletes or something. And the thing that the women talked about during the movie was fucking each other. And the message that the movie brought up is that women do fuck women. Well, in January 1987, my brother came over. When I mentioned that in front of my father, he told me that he should have given me a good crack across the head for talking like that 10 years ago, and he was able to make me feel guilty for talking like that. And well, this is kind of written a while ago, so my father was a snowflake because he was offended. Is that true? Was he?
I'd have to say so.
In 1993, my friend June talked to me once that she once sucked a guy's dick and she got pubic hair stuck in her throat. I mentioned that in front of my father when my brother was over, and and he was so upset with me for talking like that, and I didn't really give a flying fuck. Living in Florida made me turn very militant. On July 13, 1984, I started living in Minnesota, but things would never be the same because everything changed on Thanksgiving 1986. Of course, I guess I didn't have enough time to talk about it during the spoken words, but that was when I went into that huge rampage, and that fucking douchebag walks in our backyard and says, "There's children in this neighborhood." Where are we at with time?
9:53.
Well, we got 4.5 minutes.
Yeah. Are you finished with it? Is that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as you know, I lived in Shithville, aka Florida, for 18 miserable years. Um, and I found not only was it too fucking hot, but it was ugly and flat. Everything looked alike. Everyone was not only boring, mediocre conformists, but they had a nasty attitude and they were snotty and cliquey. I fucking hated that.
And then that one guy told me who he's kind of a shit lover. He's got a PC. I can't say everything that I say. Yeah, like, but he told me once. He told me through 2 years in a row. Got a cold front came through in November. He said, "It ain't gonna get hot again the next April." Is that true?
No.
It was too fucking hot.
Of course, yeah. When it's 95 degrees on a day in February, you know it's too fucking hot. That's obscene.
Well, also the thermometer was in the sun, which didn't help matters.
No, it really doesn't. The sun would make it even hotter. Yeah.
And my mother was pretty fucking stupid, because she got things off to a bad start by being in a bitchy mood, all because she was triggered just because I put the cat on the bathroom sink.
Why, what's wrong with that?
That's a good question. Do you have any ideas?
No. Oh, because it's not normal, right?
That's probably what it is.
Well, so what if it wasn't normal?
And I remember when the first time we were in that house was way back in 1980, and 1980 was a year of shit for so many reasons. I stepped outside, it was raining, and there was a little bit of mud, and I tracked a little bit of mud in the house, and my father yelled at me for that. I don't think it was even all that bad, but when you've gone to a place for the first time, when you have a horrible experience within the first 5 minutes, it's going to fuck up the rest of the time you're there.
Oh, it certainly will.
I think my parents were too stupid to realize that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
And the visit was shit. That was in April 1980.
Uh-huh.
How much? What time?
12:30 we have. Yeah.
2 minutes left.
2 minutes. Yeah.
And I remember I think I had to go outside to see the thermometer or something. And this was April 1980. And my brother was being a prick because when I went outside, the mosquitoes were coming into the house.
Oh, mosquitoes do suck. I hate them.
So does Florida fucking suck.
Oh, you better believe it.
Do you have mosquitoes in Chicago in April?
You lived in Chicago. You would know. I don't think so.
I don't remember any mosquitoes.
Not in April.
Are there mosquitoes here in Atlanta in April?
Not in April. That's too early. In the summer, yeah.
Was this a thought-provoking spoken words?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the joke was on your parents because you did not become normal.
No.
Oh, well. No. Just, you know what? I never really gave it a real lot of thought, but I bet my parents were hoping by living in Shithville that I'd become normal, but it didn't happen either.
You would embrace mediocrity.
What was that?
You would embrace mediocrity.
Yeah, that never happened.
And was the time at?
13:50.
Oh, fuck, what was I going to say now?
Oh.
What the fuck was that? Oh, I remember my brother said something stupid about Steve Dahl.
What was that?
He said that the reason why Steve Dahl was popular in Chicago but nowhere else is because Chicago was loaded with cretins. And he would never make it in Florida.
Oh, and Florida's not loaded with cretins?
Of course not.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Steve Dahl bought a condo in Florida.
Whereabouts?
In Fort Lauderdale somewhere.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know if he still has it or not. He
Yeah.
still lives in Chicago. He lives in the western suburbs. He lives in Western Springs,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of rich people are, and you can take a Tron out there.
Oh. Yeah, well, it's about time, so I think we better end it. It's like 14:45.
Go, stop.